Now start the Canterbury City Council special meeting for Tuesday, June 21st. I need approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second,
All in favor?
yeah.
Yes.
Okay, we have a consent for some minutes. Anybody want to?
I do have one correction. And it has to do with May 31st, Tuesday. And it was when Jan was talking about, it says Cannon Beach spoke about concerns of the proposed water and wastewater increase and concerns of the local breweries. And I think she meant that it was her concern about the local breweries and their wastewater byproducts, and how that was being handled. And that's it.
So if I just add byproducts, that be fine?
Local breweries and wastewater byproducts. Yeah. I think that's fine. Thank you.
Anybody else? We have a motion.
Move to approve the minutes of the May 3rd regular meeting, May 10th work session, May 31st meeting with the noted changes by Councillor Risley.
Seconded. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Now we will go on to our public comment phase. So if anybody has any public comment in the house or on screen, you're welcome to now.
No hands are raised.
Don't see any, so last call. We will move on to our first item, or actually our second item, which is resolution 2218. Sorry.
Hey, good evening, Mr. Mayor, councilors. Very happy to be here tonight to adopt our budget and bed. So we have to continue along the dream. We got that. Okay, so we had our obligatory public hearing on June 14th and to receive public testimony on the budget that was approved by the budget committee. And that is a requirement every year. And then subsequently, City Council approved a motion to amend the budget that was approved by the budget committee. And so that was on to amend, and now you see before you the resolution to adopt the budget resolution, which reflects those changes that you did make at that meeting. And so other than that, we would just staff would like you to consider adoption of that revised resolution.
Any questions or concerns? Then we'll go for the motion.
I move to approve resolution number 22-18. The purpose of adopting the 2022-2023 budget as approved, submitted and acted upon by the Budget Committee, Cannon Beach, and as amended by Cannon Beach City Council, making appropriations and levying taxes for municipal purposes, City of Cannon Beach, school year commencing July 1, 2022 and ending June 30th, 2023.
Second.
Agent made motion. Questions? Jennifer?
Councilor Ogilvy,
Yes.
Councilor McCarthy,
Yes.
President Benefield,
Yes.
Risley,
Yes.
Mayor Stidel.
Yes, and thank you, Lori, for all your work.
Yeah.
Thank
That one?
you.
Thank you.
We'll go on to our next one, which is resolution number 2220.
I have a question right there. What happened to 22?
So that was on last month's, or the last meeting, that was the red.
Always going to
Yeah.
switch or, okay, thank you.
This timing. Lori.
Okay, on May 31 and June 7th, 2022, City Council met to discuss the water and wastewater rates that were proposed in the budget, which was also approved by the Budget Committee. They did make, like I said, council made a motion on the 14th meeting to amend the budget to reflect different rate increases than what were proposed and approved. And so we are looking at a water utility rate increase of 2% versus 15%. And for wastewater, we're looking at a 6% increase instead of 9.5%. And that is, you know, those revenue streams were reflected in your amendment. So the base rate for water goes to $25.67 a month as opposed to the current rate of $25.17 per month. And wastewater will be $28.74 per month as opposed to the current rate, $27.11. If you make a motion, we can adopt those new rates effective July 1st.
Any questions? Then we need a motion.
Move to approve resolution number 22-20 for the purpose of repealing resolution 2117 and establishing water, wastewater, and storm drain utility rates.
Seconded.
Seconded. Jennifer?
Council President Benefield,
Yes.
Councilor Risley,
Yes.
Councilor Ogilvy,
Yes.
Councilor McCarthy, Mayor Stidel.
Yes. Okay, now we go to this year. And we talk about more finances.
Okay, my report is for the third quarter, January through March of 2022. And it's the from the first page, when I look at this, is cash on hand. You can see a dramatic increase in that, about $7.9 million. And what's really attributing to that is the bond issuance, the full faith and credit. Those bond proceeds came in March and are reflected in our cash balance. And so we have a new fund set up that brought in those bond proceeds, and we'll see that later on. So it's $4.6 million. And then I would say that the room tax is also attributing to that increase in cash on hand, because we're seeing far greater revenues come in than what were budgeted and even better than the prior year. So it's all good in room tax right now. And overall, my report, I have really nothing that's worrisome to me. Everything is looking really good, actually. Maybe the RV park is in a little bit of a situation with the fuel tax, or not the fuel, fuel costs. But we did remedy that. Council approved a motion to approve a budget adjustment. So I think we've got that under control. So other than that, like the RV park's expenses are just right at 75% right now. And so with the adjustment, that will even that out. General fund revenues are up 1.3 million, mostly from the American Rescue Plan money that we received. So far, we've gotten $555,000. And you know that Rick has a project that he's working on, and the other amount of $195,000, and that is can be used at discretion of the city. So expenses for the general fund went out to $4,704,000. The prior year of 3.2 million. And that's primarily due to transfers out to the various funds. It's $1 million more than it was in the prior quarter, same time. So that's what's driving that up.
And Lori, didn't we make a decision that I think that the position in Public Works was approved, but it wasn't in the budget. And so we will be bringing an action for the council to fund the position
Yes,
in, you know, in a meeting very shortly.
and the plan is to see to do that, I think, in two funds, the water fund and the wastewater fund.
Thank you. I'll make sure you had your heads up again.
So the general fund is in good shape. The tax fund, transient room tax fund, they're doing well. You see on page. Or when we look at the tourism and arts fund. You can see the materials and services, that's where we pay out the money to the recipients. And you'll see it's low, it's 36,000. That's because our actual awards were 71,000, but we got some money returned from Coaster Theater in the amount of 20,000, and Tolovana Arts returned 14,000. So I guess they're not doing their events. So that's why it offsets that amount and makes that a little bit low. Otherwise, everything's good there. Room taxes, like I said, are coming in strong. The transient room tax fund, that's the chamber amount. This reflects our payment through January 15th. And so that's only a 2 quarters worth. County TRT fund, if you look down on row 12, in that first column, you see a negative 110,000. That is because we had expenditures of 167,000 in this quarter. However, as you recall, we had a resolution to reimburse this fund out of the bond proceeds for allowable costs. And so those allowable costs were $277,000. And I worked with bond counsel to so we could decide which are allowed and which weren't. And this is the figure that we came to. And so that's offsetting the other items. So that's why you get a negative there, because the money came back into the fund. But you'll see the year-to-date amount is positive number of $70,000 in that next column. Building official fund is good. Any fund balances are increasing. All the ending fund balances here on all of these funds on page 4 look good. RV park has a decrease, and that's explainable because we had a transfer out of $500,000. 250 of that, 250,000 of that went to the general fund, and the other half went to the RV park reserve fund. So that does not worry me at all. Page 5, all the utility funds are in good shape. The wastewater has a decrease in ending fund balance, and that's due to the transfers out of $385,000 that went into the reserve fund. Storm drain is down a little bit, but nothing worrisome. Roads and debt service ending fund balances are increasing. All of the expenditures are under 75%, which is our target rate for 3 quarters. And so things look fine there. Page 6, we have the administrative services fund there, which is looking fine. Central services is always over budget at this time frame. It's 80%, and that's because we have this big lump sum of insurance costs up front. And so it has to kind of taper down to the end of the year, and it evens out. And then you'll see the tourism facility renovation fund. That's where those bond proceeds came in, line 2 there under revenues. And then under the materials and services, those are the bond issuance costs we incurred, $91,000. And then you can see that $277,000 is charged to this fund because that's the amount they paid to the county TRT fund. And then on page 7, here's our room tax, exceeding the budget amounts, exceeding the 2021 year actuals. So we're in really good shape. I'm expecting the corporate to come in strong. We only have to get $202,000 in quarter 4 to hit our budget. Now granted, I think our budget was way too low, but we didn't know that at the time, so. But that's, you know, on the safe side. Page 8, this is the Tourism and Arts Fund. You can see down below, I talked about the returned contributions here for the event expenditures on line 29 and 30. And so you can see cash on hand is $571,115. Page 9 is just showing you how budget to actual variances are coming in by general fund, TAP, and TRT fund. All favorable. Those are the highlights. Like I said, everything looks good. So I'm pleased how things are coming out.
Good job.
Questions for Laura?
Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lori.
Yeah.
Okay, we added an item for concern. Deanna, if you want to join us, Bruce, do you want to kind of get us up to speed?
Yeah, we received an email from Vienna and it was relatively close to the July 1st. So I forwarded that to you and I guess I'm asking, maybe we have a policy discussion on this later. In my past position, if one counselor wanted something on an agenda, we put it on. And then if they want to get rid of it, they could, but everybody got to put things on the agenda. And so when I sent that around, it said, we don't have time. And so if anybody does request, then it'll be put on the agenda for the, was it today's 21st? And we did receive one request. And so it is on the agenda now. We've sent you all the information that Deanna has sent to staff. And so I think you have everything and I'm pretty sure that you are here to do some sort of a presentation.
Some sort of a presentation. I am Mr. Mayor Counselor. Thank you for joining me this evening. You know, I've made several general comments in the past, and I really feel it's important for me to be able to explain to you so maybe we can have some conversation around the difference between and first of all, we're a retail establishment. We're not a sit-down eating establishment. I think my big question is, what is the definition of immediate consumption? We know it means that you're going to eat it now. Generally, it means you're going to consume that product within 1 hour. So you're going to sit down at a restaurant, you're going to eat it, or you're going to take it away and take it home and eat it at home. But generally, it means you're going to. The bulk of what we produce is not hot food. And if you have many, you can look through, I mean, my email talks about some of the questions that I've had. We have people that will call in and order a couple dozen cookies to be mailed to them. They want them shipped to them. Is that for immediate consumption? It's not for immediate consumption. I'm gonna back up just a little bit here. When the prepared food tax first came to us, it was a food tax for immediate consumption in Cannon Beach. That has evolved since then and has become more. So now it's just for immediate consumption. Apparently that means if you call me and order cookies, you want delivered to you in New York, I have to, according to information that I received back from Mr. St. Dennis, that I have to prove what kind of packaging I'm sending in it to keep it fresh in order for it not to be taxed if I'm shipping it somewhere. Although that's not a one-off situation. I mean, it happens. It's not just a one-off. It happens quite frequently. We have people that'll call in and they want to order 6 dozen poppy seed muffins. They're taking them home with them. They want them packaged in 6 different boxes. we all know, I would like to think that we all know that that does not mean those are for immediate consumption. Family members, coworkers. I also have expressed the fact that, sorry, I'm a little nervous and I lost my way a little bit. I've also expressed the fact, I don't know what I was going to say, so I'm just long to it. So there's many things that give me reason to pause. I know what I was going to say now. About our point of sale system. Thank you for smiling, Sam. That makes me feel a little calmer. Our point of sale, with the amount of SKUs that we have, our point of sale system is very difficult to navigate. So when I came in and talked to the council earlier and gave a general comment, my concern is that it's very difficult to implement this through the way that we have our point of sale system set up. I have currently spent countless hours trying to reorganize and figure out, and I'm coming up with questions. I just don't see how this point of sale, it's so, and then it was 6 items or more. 6 items or more are not taxed. I brought that up to council. Councilor Benefield said, tax them on everything. I wasn't given an opportunity to explain myself. So now I'm trying to do that a little bit more. So then it was just changed. So then that's just how it was. Now the baker is getting taxed on everything, but why? Are we a retail business or are we a restaurant? We don't have any indoor seating. I know it says to go, but what does to go mean? Another interesting tidbit, in the state of Washington, they charge sales tax on prepared food. They do not charge sales tax because they're not a restaurant and they're not serving hot. The takeaway item, we have people come in the shop. People talk to us. They tell us, we're taking these items, this is breakfast for the next 4 days. I get my water real quick.
Sure.
I would like you to take this into consideration. If I were to wholesale donuts, Mariner Market, and they set up one of those little things like you see in the store, and someone came in there and bought those donuts one at a time, they wouldn't be have to charge tax on them because they didn't do anything to it. So what is the difference between a donut bought at Cannon Beach Bakery or a Cannon Beach Bakery donut bought at Mariner Market, Fresh Foods, Sleepy Monk? What is the difference? Can anybody give me an answer for that?
Yeah, I can.
What is the difference?
Grocery store didn't prepare the donut. Bakery does.
So what is the difference? That might,
Food.
it's very clear. It's a prepared item. So should I just start wholesaling everything?
So I can help. There's a, Mayor, may I?
Yes, please, Ashley, step in any old time.
So a couple things. So there are definitions in the code. The definition for immediate consumption means the item is intended to be consumed without the need for additional preparation. So if you are purchasing something at a restaurant and you can take it and eat it, then that is an item that is taxed. So the default, if you are selling prepared foods that somebody can take out of your business and eat without having to do any additional preparation, the tax applies to those items. We also have exemptions. So the baseline is that the tax applies to prepared food that is prepared for immediate consumption. Then we have some exemptions under the code. And one of those exemptions is for items that are purchased in bulk. So this is the one that I believe that we removed the 6 items or more from earlier, but I could be wrong about that. So that is part of the exemption. So if you're buying something in bulk for non-immediate consumption off the premises, including but not limited to ice cream packaged in a large container, then the tax doesn't apply to that. So when we're talking about, whether you're shipping items, the freshness of the package, honestly, that was me trying to help in this situation. So for your items, baseline, if there's nothing else that needs to be done to them, that they just can be eaten, then the tax applies. However, now we're getting into a bulk situation. What does it mean to be sold for bulk and non-immediate consumption? And the advice that I provided is that if you are packaging items with the intended that they be sold and the consumer is able to keep those items and they last for an extended period of time, those items would be sold in bulk for non-immediate consumption. So I wanted to clear that up. These are questions that we have addressed from Deanna. Sorry, Deanna, I'm forgetting your last name. Some other local businesses have also asked similar questions, and we've been able to answer them pretty quickly when retailers or restaurateurs bring these questions to us. To Deanna's other point about whether she wholesales her donuts to a coffee shop or a cafe and then they sell them, the tax does not apply to the sale between Deanna and the cafe because that is not a sale to the ultimate consumer. However, if they take Cannon Beach Bakery donuts and they sell them directly to the consumer and that a consumer immediately eats them, therefore immediate consumption, the tax does apply to that sale. So the tax does not apply.
I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that at all. Because it says why would it? They didn't prepare it. So if I bring something in, but if I bring something in that's retail, so if I bring in Wow cookies and it's retail, I don't do anything to them. I don't have to pay tax on that. So why would they have to pay tax on it?
So they're serving it, they're selling it, and they're serving it for immediate consumption. So the tax does.
So that's an assumption that's being made. That's an assumption that's being made. And the code, the way that it's written, seems to be ever evolving and changing. So this has changed and that has changed, and it can be voted by the council to be changed. So the way that I'm looking at this is, and I don't mean to be argumentative, but this is how I feel. The way that I'm looking at that is if it benefits the city and if it benefits the councilors, if it benefits the city, no offense, please, no offense intended, then the code is ever changing as long as the council agrees. Because
so the code is only.
If the council or if the city has wanted something changed and the council agrees with it, it has been changed. So is what I am here to ask today is that I be given some consideration. Why was EVOO given consideration to their high-end customers to pay $97.30? They only have to pay tax on $97.30 of a $225 plate because they do a little extra song and dance. No offense to EVOO, no offense to Bob from Lenore. But it's a service that they provide. It's a service that they provide. They're not an accredited learning school. It's a dining experience. So why were they given some sort of consideration? So it's what I'm asking, it's what I'm here to ask the council today. And because of a huge amount of endless hours that I have spent trying to vet this and sort this out, and there are still many, which I declined the city's grant money because I was told by Holland that it would only take me 3 hours, and I've got over 20 hours in this thing and I'm not done yet. And so is what I'm proposing to the council is until we can get this sorted out and there is some fairness that the bakery be taxed on the hot items that we sell and the deli sandwiches. We have a deli, we have deli sandwiches, quiche, ham and cheese, croissants, breakfast biscuits. I absolutely agree with being taxed on those things. I do not have a problem with that. But as far as the baked items, there is a lack of fairness. First of all, the 6 items or more were taken away. the bulk of the people that come and order from us, I believe our average ticket is like 6.5 items. So the bulk of the people are buying things for more than one day. And just because we bake fresh daily doesn't mean that they're not good for a week or longer, depending on how you deal with that. Deal with the product once you get it. Once you get it, then it's on you. I mean, you know, how you're going to, there are things that we do package up that are sealed. We've got DIY kits. I'm sorry.
Yeah, let's make this a discussion. So, and that's what I'm hoping is we can go back and forth.
Okay.
So you've got a lot of things you just piled on. We're going to try and touch every point.
I'm perfect with that. Thank you.
So, and I know Bruce and Ashley have things they want to say, but I'm going to start with a little bit. My concern is not the bottom line of the city. I think that's, I'm sure somebody's concerned, but it's not mine. Mine is trying to make this work as equitably as possible between all the different types of vendors we have. So oddly enough, you're one of the more unique ones. Bob was unique because of what he did. He had a valid argument, and I felt strongly with how that worked. I don't see how that, personally, I don't see how that really compares, other than the fact that, yes, he did get singled out for special consideration. The bakery is quite a challenge, and I agree. I can't imagine how you're trying to figure out the point of sale system. But in my take on how I try to separate, what is the difference between a grocery item and something I go into and buy directly from your type of business? So I'm looking at the difference between stocking a shelf with ready-made packaged items. If you have 6 muffins and 6 scones and they're already on the shelf, somebody comes in, grabs it off the shelf, pays for it. That could be ready to eat. I mean, it's a donut. It could be ready to eat, but it's packaged separately before they come in. Whereas, and this is just my personal description, Ashley might counter it. But when somebody comes in and looks through the bin and says, "Ooh, I want one of those and one of those," and you get the little piece of paper and you hand it to them, that's a service. To me, this is a service tax, not a food tax. The value of the food is used to value the tax, but the service is what we are taxing. So you go to a restaurant, you get food, but it's the service.
Taxed on his service. So I'm going to push back on that a little.
Bob is a standard restaurant that puts on a show.
But that's part of the service. See, that's part of the service.
Mayor,
Yeah, I'll let Bruce go ahead.
I'm sorry.
we could not charge tax on the $225 because it includes liquor. And so there had to be some sort of an accommodation on that as far as what the amount was. And then the amount on the food calculation that Bob proffered, and it was evaluated by the council based on that. And so we're saying, okay, well, that's the cost of the food. There's the other part, as far as the entertainment or whatever.
But every restaurant in town provides a service. The service, I think, is, I'm sorry, Sam, but services, that's every business provides a service. So if there's a service provided, then the cost of the service should be split out from the cost of the food because it is a prepared food tax. Prepared food tax. So if we're splitting out the service portion for one business, then the service portion should be split out for all the business.
I'm legal counsel will probably tell me exactly what you told me. This is my way of trying to decipher what is the difference between a donut that I buy at the grocery store from Sara Lee and a donut I get from a fresh made bakery. Now
You can go to Safeway and buy a fresh made donut too.
and if we had a Safeway, we would probably be taxing their donut part and their deli part, you know, so it falls into what Ashley was saying, is if I can walk out the door and eat it, technically it's supposed to be taxed. So, you know, that's a challenge.
I can appreciate what you're saying. I just, you know, I just think it's a real tragedy. I'm having a really hard time with charging someone $2.50 for a donut because I have to charge them 12 cents in tax. I don't make my money like a restaurant does. We make our money $2 at a time. If these people that call in and come in and get these big orders from us, probably aren't going to get them anymore. And that takes away from our business. We have, a restaurant has a tab that say $100. Our tab is $12. Our average tab ticket is $12. So that means we're going to have to explain to 8 people, especially local people, why you've got your prices out here. Why is it more? Well, there's a prepared food tax. So there's an extreme burden being put on our business because of this, not only because of the point of sale, it involves training my employees, what to charge for tax, what not to charge for tax. A lot of that can be set up in the point of sale system, but there are still a lot of variables that I probably haven't even come across yet. You know, these are just a few things. The guy who calls me from New York is going to want to know why he has to pay a Cannon Beach prepared food tax. Because it's a local tax and it should be charged locally. I mean, I'm still going, the bakery is very difficult. It is unique. And
You know, Dana, you gave some specific examples. And I think Bruce addressed those specific examples. I'd be more than happy to address those specific examples. And some are yes and some are no, because it's made clear in the ordinance what is taxed.
the ordinance that is ever changing it.
It's not ever changing.
But
It is not ever changing.
You can't.
It is not ever changing. Quit saying that. We made, while we were drafting it, it got changed. Once the ordinance in place, the only way we can change it is to have another public hearing and go through this process of changing it.
Did you have was there an actual public hearing when the bakery items were changed?
Yes,
And
right here in this council. You keep saying your tax. I'd like to clarify something. This is a tax that is collected from the consumer of prepared food.
I understand that, and I also understand that. And I also understand that the time that it is going to take me is exuberant in comparison to what it's going to take the other businesses because of the way that my business is set up. And I have been patronized by Mr. St. Dennis in my shop. See how easy that was? I just put my card out there. That was absolutely uncalled for. Absolutely uncalled for.
Are you wanting to get a resolution to some of your?
I would, it's. First of all, I really feel that I need the opportunity to be heard is what I would like is, and I'm really. I really honestly feel that it is fair for our bakery to only have to pass along tax to our customers for the hot items that we sell. I don't agree with what Ashley is saying in regard to if I wholesale something to Sleepy Monk and they sell it out their front door and do nothing to it, they don't have to charge tax on it. That's what I've been told. That's what it says in everything. So why should I have to charge tax on that item? Because I prepared it in my shop? Are they gonna eat it right away? We don't know.
When you sent it to Sleepy Monk, you did not sell it to a consumer. You sold it wholesale to Sleepy Monk.
Right.
You did not, and you did not collect a tax on it.
Correct.
So what's your issue?
Can I step in here and ask Ashley, how we came about that? Because that one does sound not quite right. If Sleepy Monk bought a ready-to-eat scone from somewhere, or even some of their other side-along things that they sell with our coffee, those are taxed. They should be taxed. Why aren't they?
I'm sorry, let me make sure that I was looking at our prepared food guide to make sure that it's consistent. But if the Sleeping Monk is selling a donut for immediate consumption, no matter where they bought the donut, they didn't, make it in their back, then that donut should be taxed.
Correct.
If it is a prepared food, and if you look at the definitions, it is, you look at the definition of what is prepared food, it means, it says, altered other than solely by washing and cooling include mixing, combining, cooking, processing, heating, and or serving for immediate consumption. So if you are serving prepared food for immediate consumption, then that item is taxed.
But EVOO doesn't get charged for serving.
EVO was out of
I'm sorry.
That is not your issue.
so the question is that if you wholesaled to another entity here in town, you're not charged for the tax
Correct.
through the wholesale.
They're not.
They have to charge the tax through their sale. So yes, they will be charging the tax
On
on
the
that.
record, Sleepy Monk does not buy donuts from us.
Oh, whatever, that's a good example. The same way, I suppose, that if they bought it from anywhere else. Okay, so that one I think is kind of,
We can address that one.
yeah.
Yeah, so that's one we can address. I'm not sure that that is the issue that Deanna is talking about. So to address what she is talking about, I agree with Councilor Benefield that the code has only been changed once so far. And that, was again at the bakery's behest regarding the six bakery items or more. That is the only time that the code has changed. However, if the city was to do what Deanna has suggested, that is not what we sent to voters. That is not what the code currently says. So if we did that, we would have to change the code to meet that language and not, we'd either have to make it specific to bakeries or have it apply to everybody. But that's not something that, that is not consistent with how the code is written right now. So it would require council action.
So I guess some of the other concerns that I have is not only now do I have. So now there's more parameters hoops that I have to jump through if I'm not going to charge tax on something. Say, I'm going to mail something to New York that we know is not going to be eaten immediately. I mean, what is immediate consumption? Generally, immediate consumption means that it's going to be a food or drink that's going to be consumed within 1 hour.
So that's not a definition that I'm familiar with, this 1 hour. And I guess I feel like it would be easier. You're discussing a lot of the struggles that you're having with this, is that the baseline is that the tax applies. If there's an exemption, then you can apply the exemption. But if the struggle is whether or not the tax applies, the default should be to apply the tax.
So I guess I would like to know that I would like to understand that the council agrees that if someone wants something mail ordered, it's for immediate consumption. If something is being delivered somewhere, and of course, we're not talking about cake, pies and things, and bread, But maybe I just have a moral issue with the fact that I know that grandma is taking 5 boxes of stuff home to her grandchildren. And it's not being immediately consumed. And when this was all initially first brought out, it was prepared food tax for immediate consumption in Cannon Beach. That language has changed. It's evolved. I don't know when it's changed. I had I'm sure it was in draft. I've had my head down, and we're a busy shop. So is what I would like to ask. I still really, I understand everything that's being said to me here. And I will, if I have a question, I will get clarification and I will charge tax on it. I don't think it's right. I think there's a lot wrong with the way that the bakery portion is being handled. That's my personal opinion. But I would like to ask council that I do receive a grant for 30 hours of my time at $65 an hour for setting up all of the hoops that I've had to jump through to set up my point of sale system to reflect being able to charge this tax. If I walk away from nothing else today, I would like to know that the council will grant me that.
By the way, immediate means instant.
It does. Thank you, Robin.
I'm gonna go back to my fairness with the other businesses idea, in that if a customer was to go to one of the restaurants and order a dozen servings of their dessert or their French fries as to go and take them home to their kids in Hillsborough, should that be taxed?
No, I don't think that it should.
Okay.
Well, I don't think anybody should take French fries all the way to Hillsborough.
Well, yeah,
But it's purchased in Cannon Beach. It's takeout. The
yeah.
definition is.
So what I'm saying is if we allow one thing for one business and the other business cannot have that same allowance, because all of the restaurants, if they sell it to go, they have to apply the tax.
I appreciate that.
So I guess the idea is that it's to-go food. However, it's collected, if it's. So that's my sense of what is fair to the other businesses in town. And the same situation, you go to the ice creamery and they want 6 cones because they're going to take them down the street to where the family is.
Sure.
So in that sense, that's where I want this, the language to be consistent. The mail order one, I have a little challenge with, and I agree with where you're sitting on the mail order. I guess that's my personal feeling, but in the sense that if I order from Missouri, I have to pay Missouri tax. I don't pay Oregon tax because we don't have a sales tax. But you do, if you order something from Missouri, you have to apply the state tax on a mail order.
But we don't have state tax in Oregon. And most places, most states don't do that to states that don't have to this for the people in the state of Oregon. But I appreciate what you're saying. And but the state of Oregon doesn't have a tax. This is a localized tax. And so and thank you for understanding. I mean, that's the confusion.
Your other concern about getting the grant. That's a different topic. I don't remember that was on here, but I don't know how everybody else feels about that one. The reason we hired a professional to come and sort out all the point of sale systems and the fact that all the other businesses work that out with our professional. And so we have to kind of follow with what that consultant has told us and how much time it takes to do it.
I'll request for the reimbursement before the deadline. No, didn't they open forever?
I did request one.
I thought you said you didn't.
I
Oh.
did.
No, she did. And then she specifically turned and said, I don't want the city's money. We took that as a withdrawal.
Because Holland came back and said that it would take me 3 hours. And it was a slap in my face. She doesn't know my business. She doesn't know how my business works. And I don't like other people in my books. And I wasn't going to invite her to sit down and just look at all of my point of sale system. And if she had come in, she would have said, oh, this is going to be an undertaking. So that's fine. I asked. I'll leave it out there. If you guys would like to discuss it later, that's fine. I still think that there are, I don't know. I think the mail order is definitely an issue.
Let me address that. And actually, I thought that if somebody ordered online or by phone for delivery of a product out of Cannon Beach, that would not be subject to the PFT.
So we took a look at that with caterers, and that was where we addressed that question about, if a caterer was having an event inside or outside of Cannon Beach, would they be taxed? That's the only time we did that, and it was one of the exemptions. We looked at it. And the purchase of food from a caterer for an event located within the city. So if a caterer was catering an event outside the city, the tax would not apply to that. Is
Which
that what you're
might
thinking
get
of?
the mail.
Yeah, so if they purchased and it's shipped out of state, out of town, is it taxed or not?
So this is the first time we've addressed this. Under the code, it says use of a delivery service for any activity under the section, whether an independent delivery service or operator provided the delivery service does not excuse the consumer from paying the tax on the food purchased. So you have in your code that if you use a delivery service, you still owe the tax. Whether or not shipping is a delivery service, that's up to the council for interpretation.
Well, I think that is, I was looking at, don't have it, but remember is the purchaser, if you purchase your product from the operator in Cannon Beach, it would be taxable. But if you're long distance, you're calling in, can't imagine if I called from New York for cookies, but if they do, then, and it gets shipped out, that's not a takeout. It is a delivery, but the consumer wasn't in Cannon Beach. So things like that would not be taxed.
Yeah, but then we run into some questions, for instance, what if somebody not in Cannon Beach, but outside, the county or outside in the county orders, to-go meal at one of your restaurants, and they use, one of the services to deliver it, to them at their house in Arch Cape. They have purchased outside the city of Cannon Beach. It's been delivered to them outside the city of limits of Cannon Beach, but still the tax, I think we would agree that the tax applies to that situation.
Yeah, I'd forgotten that example. We did go through that with pizza deliveries and others that could be delivered outside the city limits. So yeah, you're right. We had a lot of discussion on that.
Well, I thank you for all of your time. And guess I'll be writing a check. then. Thanks, you guys.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Deanna.
So if I could address one thing before we end this conversation. So the conversation about whether or not a coffee shop that resells the donut would be taxed on the sale of the donut. I will work with Bruce on that. I'm reading the Cannon Beach guide, which I had looked at before. And it says if the consumer purchases a single donut that the shop does not otherwise prepare, it is not taxable. So we had previously decided that in those situations, we would not be applying the tax. So that is, I think the code can be interpreted either way on that one. We previously had a discussion and applied it that it would not be taxed, would not be taxed in that certain situation. If the council wants to revisit that, we can revisit that. But I wanted to bring forward that I had interrupted Council Benefield when he was correctly answering that question earlier.
How does that then translate to Deanna's problem? Because you serve coffee also. So if somebody buys a coffee and a donut, technically by what Ashley just said, you shouldn't pay a tax for that donut.
That's right.
Yeah, so
So the way the code is written, I shouldn't have to pay tax.
Well,
Or the consumer shouldn't
so
have. to
I
pay.
guess I'm not talking about Deanna's situation. Deanna's situation is what does she charge for foods that she prepares in her bakery and then sells directly to consumers?
But
She
my
brought up
question.
another issue of when she sells her products wholesale to another outlet and that outlet does not prepare the food and then sells it to consumers. That's the issue that we have previously discussed as a council, that, the council made the decision that it would not be taxed in that situation because the second restaurant did not prepare it.
So
But
Again, both
hang on a
are
second.
supported by the code.
Ashley, what I'm asking though is the coffee shop that has the little bin of donuts
Mhm.
doesn't have to pay a tax or gather a tax on that donut. But Deanna, who sells coffee, does. That is not fair.
Well, we
She
can,
prepares the
again,
donut.
that is something that is open to interpretation under our code. Is the council that ultimately interprets it. So if we want to change how we are, discussing this with people, we certainly can. And I see what you mean about the fairness issue there. What the council had previously decided is that it's a tax on prepared foods. And if the second retailer isn't preparing it, they're just serving it for immediate consumption, then the tax would not apply. This is an issue that we can revisit, if the council wants to. And also I'd be interested to hear if Bruce has any input on that one as well.
The reseller does not prepare the food. That is the difference.
And that I missed all that in the original discussion because that does not work for me.
I think it should be taxed.
Either it should be taxed or somehow Deanna should not be taxed. So if it was, I'm going to go back to my idea. If it is a Sara Lee package, like prepackaged and purchased as a off the shelf item, that's different than the donut that's in the tray that you have to use a little piece of paper to hand over. I see that as a difference. So, and it's because you're able to take a bite out of that immediately before you walk out the door. Whereas a Sara Lee thing, I don't know. That's the difference between grocery and a prepared food to me. So that becomes an issue for my consideration brought to us through what's happening with the bakery. Yeah, that begins to get a little wonky.
Thank you, Mayor Sedell.
So yes, Ashley, I think we should revisit that discussion.
So in light, if I may address the council again, in light of that, I would like to go back to my proposal because I want us all to be on the right side of this. And thank you so much for recognizing what I was saying. So I would like to propose that in the interim, we either, which I know this isn't an option, defer the tax to start until October 1st, so we can get clarity.
Yeah.
Or I know it's not an option, or some sort of resolution or amendment is written so the bakery will charge their customers tax on the hot prepared food items that we prepare until we can get this sorted out.
Or
Oh,
be my option is I think we're gonna have to, and because of where we're at with everybody else, that we're gonna have to move forward the way it is. And then start tweaking it when we figure out that there are a bunch of other problems. Because there will be. And I think we're definitely gonna have to get to a point where we're gonna have to tweak it here and there. And I would say let's plan for that to happen in the fall so that we have a couple months under our belt, knowing how it's working or not working. Because that's the way these things work. We have to test them. We have to see how it works. We have to get it in gear and find the bumps in the road.
yeah, but I do, that was my main concern, is the fairness factor. Whether it's prepared in my shop or whether it's prepared or it's purchased somewhere else. If I'm doing the same service, why should our customer have to pay?
We'll figure it out somehow.
All right.
Thank you.
Hope that someone will reach out.
I'll go back to your definition, Sam. It's like a restaurant. Some already prepared food. They don't do anything to it, but they serve it and they collect the tax. So in the coffee shop, for example, they serve it as a food. It probably should be taxed. I think you're right.
It gets deeper than that because you got to think at the other side. I know that Mariner buys muffins from Costco, repackages them. Is that at what point does prepared fit into how ready is it to eat? This is going to be a challenge, but I do, like I just said, I think we need to kick it into gear. There will be bumps in the road. And sort those out at a collection point, I guess. Anybody else? I mean,
No, I agree with you. I'd like to make sure it's very clear for everybody. Because from what I understand, there eventually will be auditors. And at that point, it will become even a more difficult situation.
So if I could, I definitely agree that as we work through this process, we're going to have, to work out certain situations. I'll mention that the city staff has been doing a great job of fielding questions. There are different retailers. Every retailer has its own challenges. Fresh Foods definitely has a lot of questions about how the tax applies to them. They have asked those questions. We've been able to respond and provide them answers. So I think, the process is working really well. And, restaurateurs are coming forward with questions. We're able to answer those. I do think this is one that we should address. I think I heard both Mike and Sam wanting to address it. Is that the will of the consensus or is that the will of the council or just those counselors?
My take on this is that it will not be perfect. There isn't going to be this overall sense that it's fair to every single business, especially to grocery stores and bakeries and coffee shops. They deal in some goods that they make themselves, others that they bring in. There will be some things that just need to be sorted out. And my wish is that we move forward with the tax as it's written now, like Sam indicated, and see what happens after 6 months or so.
Yeah, I agree. Have we had questions from Sea Level Bakery?
Yes.
And have they been basically some of the same questions that Deanna asked?
I can't tell you specifically on all, but yes, they had similar questions and we were able to respond to all the questions.
Mhm.
And they were put in the form of questions. How do I handle this?
Mhm.
Yeah, and I read Bruce's response to Deanna's questions. And they sent me, I agreed with those responses. But I didn't hear her either accept it or reject those answers. So I don't know. I don't know what her response is, what Bruce set out.
Yeah, I did the same thing. I had sent some ideas to Bruce and he has, considered them and we talked about it a little bit. The only one that I don't feel comfortable with is the mail order type thing. That's going to be like 0.01% of what I would say. Let's just, nobody else is going to be doing mail, but maybe the cupcake shop. I can't think of anybody else, so I wouldn't worry about that one. And I would say this. Let's make a definition of what the difference is between to go and mail order. Other than that, I agree. I think all of Bruce's responses were correct for all of the only one that I didn't initially agree with was the frozen scoop cookie dough. I didn't realize that was something you would bake yourself. I thought it was going to eat frozen scoop cookie dough.
No,
It's actually pretty good, but
That's how it would be consumed in my house. I would never see the oven.
that related,
Well, it'd be thawed before it
yeah,
was
but
consumed.
that relates to an ice cream cone, which we do have a tax on.
Right.
So
And I think that we all have our own definitions or concepts of what certain things mean. And I think it's important that moving forward for right now, at least I would like this direction from council, is that it's not, my interpretation of something. It's going to be like, for example, of immediate consumption. There's a lot of things, but there is a definition of immediate consumption in our ordinance, and that should be what drives any interpretations. Because if people start saying, well, Jan's making choices or whatever based on interpretations, then if somebody else, maybe it's not immediate consumption, I don't know what it is, hot food or whatever the discussion is. I think that if there's a question, we should be able to rely on the ordinance and the definitions.
Does it say in the ordinance about immediate consumption?
Ashley, can you answer that? You read it
Yeah.
once.
I'll read it. It says, means the item is intended to be consumed without the need for additional preparation.
It's not about time.
not about time at all.
Yeah.
It's just preparation.
Yeah, and
Additional.
preparation means altered other than solely by washing or cooling, and includes mixing, combining, cooking, processing, heating, and or serving for immediate consumption. So if you can
Thus-
take it and walk out of the store and with one hand eat it, that is served for immediate consumption, whether you do that as you exit the store 2 or 3 hours later. It's a prepared food.
And so we're going to be asked, and people will probably, challenge it, and that's fine. But that we are going to rely on the definitions in the ordinance and not somebody's interpretation of what prepared food means or whatever. Because I could see this being a slippery slope. So if you want to change any definition, fine. But we need to have the definitions to be able to go ahead and make interpretations.
Yeah, as I answered those questions,
Mhm.
I reviewed all the definitions before each
Yeah.
one. And I came up with the same conclusions you did
Mhm.
by following the definitions, not my interpretation, but just
Mhm.
the pure language.
Yeah, and I think that as far as the implementation of this, if we rely on the definitions, and we can rely on the definitions, then we'll be consistent in providing answers. And then it won't start getting squishy right in the beginning, that one place does it one way, another place does it another. That'll be a problem, several months down the road, and people saying, well, it's just out of control, you don't know what you're doing. So I think that it is important that we get the direction to rely on the definitions and not someone else's interpretation. And that you change them as you see fit. But until you change them, we will do the interpretation. We always run things by Ashley. But what the interpretation will be.
But I go back to that one point about the coffee shop too. That definition runs counter to the exemption for a coffee shop to serve a donut.
Yeah, and I could argue another side of that. And that the bakery prepares it for for their customers. Then they have a retail business where they go and they sell it over here. Those people they didn't prepare it, they bought it retail. If they're trying to say this for me, I'm sorry.
But the ice cream shop buys their ice cream retail. They will tax it.
When you put it in, when they prepare it and put it in a cone or whatever. That's when it gets taxed.
Yeah, so that is not in the definition
Yes, it is.
of what a prepared food is.
Absolutely it is.
Yeah.
They didn't fix it there, right? They didn't make it there.
No, but they prepared it.
Definition where it says service.
Yeah, but they went ahead and they put it in a cone, and so they took that action to give it to you. But if I sell you an ice cream sandwich that was made by Mr. Goodbar or whatever, then you won't get taxed on that. I'm just picking it out of the freezer. So to me, that's where the difference is on those. But again, I think you should clarify that where you think it comes down.
Let's say the ice cream was a bad example. Let's go to the restaurant that serves the chocolate cheesecake that it purchased from Costco and did not create. All they did was put it in the box for you. Same thing that Deanna would do with a donut. I'm sorry, this is where I'm gonna go with that argument because
The restaurant didn't put it in a box for you, or if they
They
did.
put it on a plate.
They put it on a plate, and if they did put it in the box, it was a takeout.
Yeah.
Which gets taxed.
agreed.
Yeah, but even if they put it on the plate, they prepared that for you. They took it from this.
But that coffee shop did the same thing. They put it on a plate or they put it in a box for you.
And it's taxed.
And it's not taxed. It's exempted. That's what I would change. I would
Make sure it gets taxed.
I would make sure that gets taxed. I know there's probably coffee shops now that are gonna yell at us, but I think,
You're in trouble.
I think if it's a donut that's easy to eat, whether they made it or not, that's probably where I'm gonna have some troubles with and how that works.
Yeah, and it's, I'm saying, but for now, they will be taxed, and then y'all have a discussion.
We'll have to.
Yeah, and Deanna will be taxed.
Okay, this is gonna be ongoing, I'm sure.
Lori's trying to say something.
I just wanted to bring up that packaging has a lot to do with it too, and our code talks about packaging, right, Ashley?
Are you talking about when things are prepared in bulk?
No, like if Deanna sold the donuts to Sleepy Monk and they're just out in the case, they're not packaged like they would, then I think it would be taxed. But if they put them, well, I don't know,
Let's have the discussion when it comes up.
Yeah.
Okay,
but the code talks about packaging.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
Yeah, so that's gonna run into another issue.
Mhm.
Okay. We'll end this one now. And that leaves, we got good of the order. Before Bruce, I just want to memorialize, we've lost two folks in town. John Newman was a cherished restaurateur who actually helped develop to me the quality of restaurants that we have in town. Because he cooked at several of them throughout his career here, created his own and beyond. So that was great. Mike Capper, very skilled builder in the area. We'll miss him also.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you for recognizing them, Mr. Mayor. Couple, related to the prepared food tax, we, all of the businesses that are going to collect have to be signed up with finance department by July 1st. And last count, it was like 12 out of 60.
We don't know.
Yeah.
But we know there are a lot more out there that have not.
Right. So, and I don't think that it's a movement or anything. I think that it's just people who are very busy. They've received 2 notices. And we've only got 8 or 9 business days. So I'll be sending out another one. There is the possibility of a fine. I will be mentioning that. I'm not trying to, strong arm anybody, but I don't want to get to the point that we charge the fine without saying, hey, please get this in. And I'll do it in as soft a way as I can, but we need to have those places sign up. And again, part of the reason I'm thinking it's just a time thing. They have almost all of them are done the point of sale. So they intend to, do the right thing. That's one part. Other thing is we got 2 fun things coming up. The first concert in the park is this Thursday. It'll be floating glass balls from 4 to 6. And on Sunday, the Pan Wizard Steel Drum Band comes into town. They will be playing a bunch of high school steel drumming. So we got 2 concerts coming up. Good. And I think there's something coming from
Experience.
yeah, coming up. So
Not sure.
we're
when.
really using that bandstand in the park. And it's drying out, so you can actually sit on a blanket without worrying about getting your pants wet. So there's a couple positives. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Anybody else?
I have an observation to make. I'm just going to make this observation and let it go. The city gives the chamber over $500,000 a year. Has been for several years now. But last night there was a residents only meeting held at the chamber to discuss issues of concern involving the city. But certain residents, including the city manager and city councilors, were specifically asked not to attend. And I think that we are residents, unless all of us have moved out of the city. I think we should be able to attend a meeting that's called by another resident, if it's a residents only. And I'm concerned that it was held at the chamber, since it is a public. It is, I think much of their budget is publicly funded.
Well, weddings are held at the chamber and those are private.
But
They
they are
charge
paying,
for
they
that.
pay. They pay to use the chamber hall.
I didn't when Risley was married there because I was a member.
Well, some people,
So maybe somebody there was a member of the chamber and got the meeting room. You'll have to check and see.
I know one of the people who asked the city council not to attend is a board member of the chamber. It just seems to me that was not an inappropriate location.
Yeah, maybe.
Anybody else? We are adjourned. Thank you.